So, what if I told you that a material, tucked away in your everyday life,
Hmm.
maybe in your furniture or
Yeah,
floorboards?
or even packaging.
Exactly.
Yes.
Packaging from online orders, right? What if I said that's actually at the heart of a multi-billion-dollar global market? And it's growing pretty impressively year after year.
Hmm.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into the global compressed fiberboard market. Yes, I know, compressed fiberboard. It might sound a bit niche,
A little dry, maybe.
maybe a little dry, yeah. But here's where it gets really interesting because it's actually, well, it's a surprisingly clear window into some fundamental global economic
All
shifts.
right.
We're going to, unpack the numbers, pinpoint those surprising growth hotspots, and hopefully give you those aha moments about why this actually matters. We're looking at its performance back in 2021 and then projecting all the way out to 2033.
In our dive today, it's guided directly by a pretty comprehensive market report. So this isn't just about throwing numbers around.
Right.
It's about understanding the granular insights, the revenues, the compound annual growth rates or AQRs across different regions, different countries. We're looking at the what, but maybe more importantly, the why behind these significant market shifts.
Okay. So let's start with that big picture then, globally. How big are we talking?
Well, globally, the market generated a pretty substantial $11.1 billion in revenue. That was back in 2021.
11 billion. Okay, that's already a huge starting point for something so, well, unassuming.
And what's truly fascinating here is the forward trajectory. By 2025, that figure is projected to climb to nearly $13.9 billion.
Okay.
And if we look further out to 2033, revenues are forecasted to reach a really impressive $21.6 billion.
Wow. Okay, almost double.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mm.
This represents an overall compound annual growth rate, the key AGR, of about 5.7%. And that really underscores, not just expanding demand, but solid, consistent adoption worldwide. It tells us this isn't some kind of flash in the pan.
Right, it's got legs. Okay, so 5.7% globally. Let's zoom in a bit. North America. It's a key established economy. What does the data tell us about its contribution?
Right, North America was a significant player. It contributed just over $3.5 billion in 2021.
Okay.
Now, this is expected to rise to nearly $4.4 billion by 2025 and then up to about $6.6 billion by 2033.
Uh-huh.
So the regional KGR there sits at a healthy 5.27%. It indicates steady growth. Maybe not explosive, but definitely steady.
Steady, okay. And within North America, I remember seeing some interesting dynamics. The U.S. is the biggest market, obviously, but its growth rate may be a bit more modest, while Canada and Mexico seem to be picking up the pace.
That's exactly right. So the U.S. market, yes, it's the largest. It was around $2.76 billion in 2021, projected to reach $4.85 billion by 2033, but its CAGR is 4.78%.
Yeah.
Canada, however, shows a stronger push. It's moving from about $549 million up to $1.13 billion by 2033.
Okay.
And that gives it a more robust EAGR of 6.27%.
Better, yeah.
But here's where it gets really intriguing. Mexico.
Ah, yes.
Its market started smaller, around $224 million back in 2021, but it's projected to jump to nearly $597 million by 2033. And that gives it the highest regional SIG-AGR, an impressive 7.79%.
Wow, 7.79. So Mexico is outpacing both the U.S. and Canada quite significantly then. That does raise a question. What's driving that? Why such a standout performance for compressed fiberboard specifically in Mexico?
Well, this specific growth in Mexico, it points pretty directly to increased manufacturing and construction activity. We're seeing that trend of nearshoring, right?
Right, companies moving production closer.
Exactly, moving production facilities closer to the North American markets. So new factories plus all the associated infrastructure and packaging needs, that's driving a substantial portion of this demand for fiberboard.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
really great example of how this material kind of acts as a barometer for those broader industrial shifts.
Fascinating. Okay, so that explains Mexico. Let's move across the Atlantic now. Europe, a more mature market certainly. Are we seeing similar pockets of like accelerated growth, or is it more of a uniform expansion there?
Europe accounted for around $3.19 billion in 2021.
Okay.
That's growing to nearly $3.87 billion by 2025 and projected to reach $5.8 billion by 2033. The regional CGR overall is 5.18%. So yes, a mature market, but still showing pretty consistent demand.
Similar to North America overall then.
Pretty similar, yeah.
Yeah.
Leading players like Germany are quite strong. Projected to reach $1.35 billion by 2033. starting from about 707 million in 2021. That's a solid 5.63% CAGR.
Uh-huh.
The UK is also performing well, growing from about $455 million to $930 million over the same period. Its CAGR is actually a bit higher, 6.05%.
Okay, so those key European economies are showing good, steady growth. But I'm looking at the data here for Denmark and Switzerland. Their TGRs are lower rate, hovering around 3.7%.
That's right, yeah. Denmark's is 3.765%, and Switzerland is 3.651%, notably lower.
But then this rest of Europe category, that's showing a really robust 7.11% CAGR. That's higher than Germany or the UK. What's happening in rest of Europe that lets it outpace even the larger economies?
That's an excellent observation. And it's key, really. While some of those very mature markets like Denmark and Switzerland have slower growth, probably because their infrastructure is already established, less large-scale new construction.
Makes sense.
The rest of Europe category, which jumps from about 228 million in 2021 to over 484 million by 2033, suggests that emerging economies within Europe, maybe in Eastern Europe, perhaps Southern Europe, are undergoing significant infrastructure development. Housing projects, too.
Playing catch up.
Exactly, they're playing catch-up, and fiberboard demand is a direct beneficiary of that expansion. It really indicates where the focus of new development is truly concentrated within the continent.
That's a great insight. Shows how those regional nuances can totally flip the script. Okay, let's shift focus again. Asia Pacific, obviously a known powerhouse of economic activity. What's the story for compressed fiberboard there? Is it as dominant as we might expect?
Oh, definitely. The Asia-Pacific market recorded nearly $2.4 billion back in 2021.
Okay.
It's projected to surge to over $3 billion by 2025, and then to a really remarkable $4.94 billion by 2033. That gives it a strong regional CAGR of 6.12%. So yes, definitely a region with significant momentum.
Right. And China, I assume, plays a big role.
As expected, yes. China dominates. Its market share grows from about $844 million in 2021 to over $1.7 billion by 2033. It maintains a solid 6% CAGR.
Okay.
But India also shows really impressive momentum. Its market is set to more than double, from nearly $149 million in 2021 to over $347 million by 2033. And that achieves a strong CAGR of 7.1%.
Oh, interesting. So even with China's massive contribution, India's growth rate is actually higher.
It is, yeah, higher than China's.
Are there other notable players in this dynamic region?
Absolutely. Japan, for instance, it's a large market, but it shows a more moderate 5.34% CAGR.
Okay.
However, countries like Singapore and the broader Southeast Asia markets are exhibiting very healthy growth. Singapore's CAGR is 6.23%, and Southeast Asia is even higher at 6.63%. And if we, connect this to the bigger picture, the sheer scale of ongoing urbanization, infrastructure development, manufacturing expansion across Asia-Pacific, it just explains why it's such a major driver for this market. It reflects this really broad-based demand for materials and construction and industry.
Makes total sense. Okay, next up, let's turn our attention south to South America. What trends are we observing there? Are we seeing similar patterns, maybe, of leading and lagging markets within the continent?
Yeah, so South America's market generated around $743.6 million in 2021. It's rising to about $902.5 million by 2025 and forecasted to reach nearly $1.3 billion in 2033. The overall CAGR for the region is 4.62%.
A bit lower than North America or Europe.
A bit lower, yes. Now, Brazil, as the region's largest economy, naturally leads this market. It's projected to grow from about $371.7 million in 2021 to over $680 million by 2033. Its CAGR is 5.09%.
Okay, so Brazil is pulling the average up a bit.
It is. Other key countries like Argentina, Colombia, Peru, and Chile also show positive growth, generally ranging between, say, 4.1% and 4.9% CAGR.
Right. So Brazil is clearly driving the bus there. But then there's that rest of South America category again. That seems to be lagging quite significantly compared to the rest of the continent. The CAGR is just 1.8%.
It's just 1.803%. It's a really critical point. While the major economies like Brazil are seeing that steady expansion driven by industrial and residential construction.
Right.
This rest of South America category grows only from about $72.2 million to $93.6 million by 2033, suggests that these smaller, maybe less developed markets within the region, well, they just aren't experiencing the same level of industrialization or large-scale building projects.
So demand is flat.
Pretty much. Their demand for a foundational material like compressed fiberboard remains relatively flat. It's a direct indicator of those varying stages of economic development, even within a single continent.
It's always insightful, yeah, seeing how different subregions can have such varied stories. Okay, let's pivot now to the Middle East. What's the outlook for fiberboard in this dynamic and, rapidly developing region?
The Middle East market recorded around $643.7 million in 2021.
Okay.
It's going to nearly $821 million in 2025 and expanding to over $1.33 billion by 2033. It shows a very healthy CPR overall of 6.26%. So this region is certainly on an upward trajectory.
Nice and healthy. And are there specific countries driving that strong growth, or is it more of a, uniform regional expansion?
We see consistently strong performers here. Saudi Arabia is showing a healthy CGR of 6.47%. But the UAE actually stands out with an even higher 6.68% CGR. Qatar also boasts a robust 6.39% growth rate. And these are all economies known for significant construction diversification projects.
Projects, yeah.
Exactly. Turkey and Egypt are also substantial contributors. Their CGRs are around 6.08% and 5.88% respectively.
Okay.
So what's really fascinating here is that consistent and healthy growth across several key economies in the Middle East. It points to sustained, large-scale development, new cities, residential, commercial infrastructure. The works.
Right. Okay, finally, let's explore Africa. The report really highlights some intriguing and, powerful trends here. It seems like maybe one of the most exciting growth frontiers for this market.
You're absolutely right. Africa demonstrated one of the strongest growth trends in the entire report. Really stood out. The market revenue was just under $600 million in 2021.
Okay, starting smaller.
Starting smaller, yes. Growing to about $825 million in 2025. But it's expected to surge to an impressive $1.64 billion by 2033.
Wow.
Showing an exceptional CDR of 8.98%.
Yeah.
It's truly significant on a global scale.
Almost 9%. Okay. And within Africa, what are the standout performers? Because I think I saw one country with just an astonishing number.
Indeed. Nigeria is showing very strong growth, projected to reach over $688 million by 2033. Up from about $266 million in 2021. That's an 8.59% CAGR. Very strong.
Very strong.
But the absolute highest CAGR in the entire report across all regions, all countries, belongs to South Africa.
Yes.
An astounding 9.715%.
9.7?
Yeah, its market is projected to nearly triple, from just over $150 million in 2021 to $443 million by 2033.
Almost 10% growth year over year in South Africa. For compressed fiberboard, that's phenomenal. That's significantly higher than even China or India's growth rates. What does this tell us? What foundational shifts are happening in Africa to drive such demand for this, specific material?
Well, it suggests a really profound level of emerging demand.
Yeah.
And largely untapped potential still. A CEGR this high, nearly 10%, it indicates rapid urbanization, significant infrastructure development, and a surge in residential and potentially light manufacturing construction across key African nations.
Right.
It signifies not just, new buildings, but new industries, new consumer markets taking shape. It really positions Africa as a region to watch very closely, not just for fiberboard, but for a whole host of related industrial and consumer materials.
Okay, wow. We have covered an incredible amount of ground today, from the mature markets, North America, Europe, to these surging frontiers in Asia-Pacific and especially Africa. So let's bring it together. What does this all mean for you, the listener, as you're trying to navigate the global economic landscape?
Yeah, I think this deep dive into, what seems like a simple material, compressed fiberboard, it reveals a global market that's not just expanding consistently, which it is,
right,
but it's also showcasing these incredibly varied regional dynamics. While established markets like the U.S., parts of Europe, they maintain that steady growth. The real momentum, the most significant opportunities, and maybe the most compelling insights into global development, they seem to lie in regions like Africa, Mexico, parts of Asia-Pacific. It's a really clear signal, I think, of where global demand and industrial shifts are truly taking root. It shows us where the world is quite literally being built, brick by, fiberboard.
It really does paint that picture, doesn't it? Where demand is surging, where the global landscape is shifting. So just to recap, We've seen this global compressed fiberboard market on a path of consistent growth overall, but with these remarkable surges, especially in regions like Africa and Asia Pacific, contrasting with that steady, maybe more predictable expansion in the mature markets.
Exactly. And, this deep dive into what seems like such a basic material,
Yeah.
it isn't just about the market numbers themselves. It really raises, I think, an important question for you to consider. If these seemingly niche materials, like compressed fiberboard, are experiencing such dynamic and geographically diverse growth, what does that tell us about the really foundational shift happening across global construction, manufacturing, consumer demands, and maybe more broadly, what other overlooked foundational materials might be signaling similar powerful trends that perhaps we should be watching just as closely?